a treasure trove of historical negatives that reveal what life was like in the Four Corners 100 years ago, are now seeing the light of day in calendars published by two longtime Montezuma County friends. You're watching the Local News Network, brought to you by Kazee Motors in Cortez and Sirius Texas Barbecue. I'm Wendy Graham-Settle. When Montezuma County native Vern Entz purchased a box of old large-format film and glass plate negatives from a Farmington pawn shop in 2010, he knew he had something special. Fascinated with Native American cultures ever since he found an arrowhead on his elementary school ball field in Redmond, Colorado, Entz discovered that the box contained a treasure trove of priceless images depicting Navajo and Western pioneer life in the Four Corners from 100 years ago. Entz held on to the collection for nearly 8 years, when he finally showed the negatives to his longtime friend, David Reinecke, a photographer, former art teacher, and history buff. That's when they decided to publish a calendar to share the images with the world. Entz and Reinecke estimate the photos span about 15 to 20 years, from about 1920 to the mid-1930s. They include shots of Navajos outside their hogans, a trader with a burro loaded with hides, a bare-fisted boxing match in a dirt yard, a cowboy riding a bull during a rodeo, an image of a rare Bistai-style Navajo weaving, and an oil rig from 1922 that may be the same rig on display outside the Farmington Museum and Conference Center. In fact, the oil rig provided the inspiration for the calendar's title, because they believe it was used to drill oil near the Hogback Ridge next to Shiprock.
And Dave and I were trying to figure out a name for our company, right? And we'd come up with everything. This rig drilled behind the Hogback in right outside of Shiprock there. And we got to talking about the Hogback.
Back in time.
And you said...
Well, now you said back in time. Let's
No,
call ourselves back in time. That's what you said.
Yeah, I kept saying back in time.
Yeah.
And then Dave says, how about Hogback in time?
See,
And
we're
we
not-
looked
we're
at
nuts.
each other and said, there we are.
No one seems to know who took all the photos. Was he a tourist or a local resident who loved taking photos? Perhaps he was a trading post owner or a journalist out to capture life in and around the reservation. All they know is that the Farmington pawn shop owner who sold the collection to Entz had purchased the negatives from an elderly Navajo man in 1990. Reinecke and Entz do know the photographer was skilled at using the large format camera to capture the images. The bull rider photo is amazingly sharp and crisp, as are the details in the Navajo weavings that the photographer captured.
This photographer, unknown photographer, it has to hold this big box. It must weigh 50 to I don't know how many pounds, with glass plates, and he's moving with this buffalo or this bull, and clicking the pictures.
Reinecke and Entz hold out hope that they'll eventually discover the photographer's identity. Several longtime residents have recognized some of the people in photos published in the 2020 calendar, and they hope to conduct further interviews with their leads. The 2020 calendar was so popular that Reinecke and Entz decided to publish a second. To be truthful, not all the photos in the 2021 calendar are from the collection. It also contains a couple of never-before-published photos from the date that the Navajo Nation signed the Indian Reorganization Act Treaty in 1934, when Indian tribes were awarded the right to self-governance.
Now, there was supposed to be no photos taken of this signing, see right here. Mr. Ashcroft wore a great big coat, and when no one was looking, he opened it up, and he took a photo of that.
It's the first time
And that-
these two have ever been published. And he gave Vern 4 or 5 photographs that Vern brought to me. I did the history on all this.
This come right out of
This
their
is-
family photo.
And I've never found anything like this online that even comes close to this photograph.
That may be the only photo.
Reinecke and Entz say they're not sure what they plan to do next with a little box of negatives that holds a big chunk of Four Corners history. They're both 77 years old and have families they want to enjoy. In the meantime, you can purchase a Hogback in Time calendar at various New Mexico trading posts, in select stores in Cortez, Mancos, Dolores, Dove Creek, and Durango. And if you have more information, recognize any of the people or places in the calendars, or may know the photographer, contact Reineke at hogbacktime@gmail.com. Thanks for watching this edition of the Local News Network. I'm Wendy Graham Settle.